So, a couple of days ago, I ran into a bit of a problem. I ran out of good games of StarCraft 2 to cast. It's maybe a little bit odd because obviously there's a ton of tournaments being played and there's a lot of replays being distributed as well. But generally speaking, whenever I post a video, right, a StarCraft 2 cast, I always cast several games just because I want to only post the best of the best. And I casted a couple of matches that day and none of them really were particularly great. So, what I ended up doing, since I didn't really have a whole lot of recent replays to go over anymore, I ended up tweeting that if a pro gamer that follows me wanted me to go ahead and cast one of their games, I'd be happy to pay for the replay, but I'm seriously looking for a couple of games to cover on my YouTube channel. Now, the man right here in the top right-hand corner of Eternal Empire responded and sent me one of his matches. He asked me what specifically I was looking for. He knows that I'm a big fan of the long games, especially the long drawn-out matches against top-level players, and he delivered. This is probably the longest game of Zerg vs Protoss that I have seen this year, so I have no idea what to expect. I've got my concerns, we'll go over that in just a little bit. But spawning here in the top right-hand corner of Eternal Empire, playing with the blue Zerg drones. From Finland, we have, of course, none other than Serral. His opponent already going for the cheeky little natural block, playing with the red Protoss probes. He's from the United States of America. He goes by the name of Neeb. Alrighty. So, I don't know anything about this game, right? I just looked at the replay timer. So, judging off of that and also the colors that the players are under and the fact that actually during the loading screen of this replay, you could see the MMR of both of these players. So, this is going to be a ladder game. I'm assuming that this is going to be a very long and drawn-out macro game of Skytoss versus, like, you know, the Corruptor, Viper, Spore Crawler, Brute Lord kind of thing. Now, here's the thing. Serral is probably the best late-game Zerg player in the world. So I'm a little bit concerned that this is going to come down to, like, Neeb losing for 40 minutes. I don't know if that's going to be the case, because obviously we did have that very recent multiplayer balance patch. That basically buffed up the Void Ray, but also the Tempest. Now, if we end up going in that direction, and I can't really imagine a world where we don't, I'll go ahead and cover the changes and the updates that they have made once we get there, or if we get there. I'm assuming we're gonna get there. There's no way we're gonna have an hour-long Zerg versus Protoss where it's not gonna be coming down to Skytoss and Spore Crawlers and Corruptors. I just don't see it happening. If this is gonna be an all-out slugfest with like Archon Immortal and the, you know, both of the players end up mining out the map where Zerg is going tons of banelings and stuff, I would be very surprised. Let's just leave it at that. Regardless, despite going for a natural block right there on the other side of the map, Neeb does decide to go and follow this up with a Stargate. It seems that this is a pretty common follow-up. I mean, I think Stargate is okay, especially if you, you know, have just a standard macro game. A lot of Protoss players right now do seem to be very, very fond of going for that very quick Adept upgrade. So, while the Glaive Adept build, it is losing a little bit of popularity, I'm a big fan of the Glaive Adept build, especially when you manage to block your opponent's natural. Because when you think about it, right, I mean, they're obviously not going to be able to connect their bases with creep by the time that your actual attack hits, and the queens are going to all be over the place, and or they're going to be all over the place, and it's just going to be a little bit more chaotic. Anyhow, you can do the same thing, obviously, if you decide to open up with a Stargate, although he decides to actually go for a Void Ray first. So that's when you know this is going to be the most recent patch. Serral knows this right now as well. It's been very common to go for a Phoenix first or to go for an Oracle first for the longest time, especially Oracle. Oracle first, obviously, is a very popular way of starting off. But going for the Void Ray here, you can see how fast this guy is these days. Unupgraded Void Ray, super quick. It's going to be able to start hunting down a couple of these Overlords. Now, Serral already is sending that second Overlord back home. Neeb knows very well that most of the time it tends to hang out either in the back or on top of this pillar. So he's going to look to see if he can potentially find it. I think he's probably going to be able to figure out that that Overlord is going to be sent back. This is the sickest little mind game, actually, man. Look at that. Serral right now actually scouts with a Zergling to see the path of that Void Ray so this Overlord can live. Already, some big brain plays right here being made by both of these. Spore Crawler is coming up. Queens are ready to go as well. And with Overlord speed done right now, I've got a feeling that most of these OVs are going to have no problem staying alive. Well, maybe this guy, though. This guy is going to apparently confirm exactly what the follow-up is going to be. And this is cool. Okay. So it's been a while since I've seen this. It's going to be a double Stargate Phoenix follow-up. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of these, like, new Stargate openers. Or, like, new old Stargate openers, okay? We've obviously seen a lot of double Stargate Phoenix in the past, but it's really fallen out of popularity. But it looks like the recent updates to the Void Rays, so once again, in case you're unfamiliar, Void Rays are a little bit faster, they're a little bit cheaper, they take a little bit less time to build. It means that you can transition to watch the Stargate a little bit easier, and I like this. Generally speaking, especially when you open up, he's gonna be okay, I think, with, yeah, 2 Queens here and a couple of Zerglings is gonna be fine. Especially when you see someone opening up with a lot of Phoenixes, a lot of Zerg players tend to just simply hold down the drone button. But nice thing right there for Serral is that he did have a couple of Zerglings ready to pick up those Adepts as well. They're one of those units that can potentially do a lot of damage. Okay, so let's talk about Double Phoenix for a little bit. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen this at this level of play. I do face it on the ladder, probably about once or twice a week, so it is still a relatively popular build, but it's a bit outdated, okay? Like the Double Phoenixes, they're like the boomer builds of Zerg versus Protoss, okay? Well, apparently they're once again viable, so maybe not. But anyways, so here's the thing. Double Stargate Phoenix, it's always going to deal damage. It is pretty much impossible to prevent yourself from taking damage against this sort of thing. So I'm pretty sure that Serral is gonna fully make the assumption right now that he's gonna end up losing like 10, maybe even 20 drones. Here's the problem though. Protoss can't really go ahead and do a timing attack off of Phoenixes alone, right? Because you can't really, like, use those for fighting buildings. You can't really, you know, deal with Zerglings very well. You just can't really use them in battle once the armies grow. So usually what Zerg players end up doing is exactly what Serral is doing right now. You're gonna lose workers, but you'll just overmake them. So already this is 13 workers going down, but Serral is gonna be able to replenish those drone losses very, very easily. And this is kind of like a weird gentleman's agreement, where Zerg is just gonna take a pounding to the face, but he's gonna go ahead and just reproduce those bad boys as fast as he possibly can. Now, one thing I do like here, is that this double Stargate opener, right? It's kind of forcing Zerg to go into the direction of Hydralisks. And just like I recently covered in that Cyan game, that it was Cyan versus DRG that I posted, I think about a week or so ago at this point, maybe 2 weeks. It forces Zerg to go into Hydralisks. Now, the problem with Hydras is that they are very, very difficult to use offensively, right? So this is gonna buy Protoss quite a bit more time. I mean, Hydras need to have both of their upgrades, and even with both of their upgrades, they're still kind of shaky at best. I mean, they die to Zealots, they die to Colossi, they die to, you know, Archons, they die to, obviously, Storm. I mean, there's a million and one ways that Protoss can deal with those Hydralisks, and while Serral could go ahead and play aggressively, I wouldn't be surprised if he's just gonna sit on the creep and just defend for the majority of this game. Now, obviously, like I said, this is going to be a very long match, so yeah, it's probably going to be a pretty passive one as well, right? So Serral actually mentioned that this is not the most exciting game ever, but I mean, it's Neeb versus Serral, right? And obviously, pro gamers have a bit of a different perspective on what is exciting or what isn't, but I can imagine it might lead into a bit of a stalemate, because already this is kind of forcing Zerg's hand right now, in the fact that he can't really get very aggressive. Like, obviously, he can push with Zerglings and Banelings, right, if he wants to. Well, if he gets a High Templar here, that'd be neat. He can push with Zerglings and Banelings if he wants to, but for the most part, the Queens and Hydras are going to have to remain on creep until a little while later. Yep. Wouldn't be surprised to indeed see this 5th base going up as well, now that the 4th base has been secured. The same can be said right now for Neeb, who is just happily securing his own 4th base right over here as well. So I'm assuming we're probably going to be seeing some Ling Bane run-bys here in a little bit. So you can see right now as well, by the way, Neeb is getting a lot more aggressive with these Phoenixes. He's got a love-hate relationship with them, man. You do want to have them, but you don't want to have them for too long. Now, this is a bit of a problem. Looks like the Zerglings aren't heading in that direction, but that could certainly come into play here in a little bit. But yeah, like, you want to have the Phoenixes, you know, in the earlier stages of the game. They're very, very helpful. But if you keep them around for too long, they can certainly become a bit of a problem as well, because they soak up a lot of army supply, and they're not going to be able to put in that much value as this game progresses. Alrighty. So, Protoss is happily securing the 4th base. And a nice thing about 4-base Protoss is that you can start transitioning towards proper late-game Skytles. If you're stuck on 2 bases, right, and you have 4 gas geysers, you just can't really afford late-game Skytles. On 3 bases, you can kind of pull it off, but that means you're not going to be able to get yourself a whole lot of High Templar. When you have 8 gases, though, that's when the game really opens up for Protoss and when they can really go ahead and get those big late-game units going. Now, I like this little move over here by Serral. Although he did just run a couple of the Banelings into a Zealot there. There's an Archon ready to defend against this as well. The entirety of the Protoss army does seem like it's going to return. So at the very least, you know, that pushing away has just been dealt with. But already, yep, as soon as the 4th base is secured, we see now Neeblet making the transition towards a fleet beacon and a 3rd Stargate. He's already getting himself the +1 flyer upgrades as well, which is fantastic. And, yeah, you can see, right? So this is kind of my problem with Hydralisk right now and with Zerg anti-air in general. Corruptors are fantastic, but it's difficult to actually get more than, you know, 5 of them out in the earlier stages of the game. They're fantastic if you can make like 25 of them at once. Vipers, obviously, absolutely amazing as well. But in the mid-game, you kind of have a weird... Yeah, you have kind of a weird spot here for Zerg, where if you're forced into Hydralisks and Queens, that's great, you're not gonna die, but you also can't really get too aggressive, right? It's a little bit of an awkward scenario, because this is now Serral playing, well, really the Serral way. He's playing exceptionally passive. I have yet to see a Zerg player go for like a successful timing attack off of Hydralisks in 2020. Let me try and point it out like that. It's just a little bit awkward. Don't think that these are going to be able to get a whole lot done. Just going to charge the... Okay. I was going to say, if you're just going to charge the Zealots, you might still end up losing them. At the same time, a couple of Zealots are over here in the natural of the Zerg player as well. But these will be deflected as well. Now, historically speaking, by the way, there's the Tempest coming. There's also the, what's this upgrade called again, dude? Oh my god, I'm not even... Flux Veins? Is it Flux Veins? I think it is. Oh my god, you gotta be so careful though. He's so far onto the creep. Yeah, those High Templar are gonna be in a little bit of trouble. Painful loss right there for the Protoss. I don't think you want to be wandering that deep onto the creep. Anyhow, I think historically speaking, the Protoss Death Ball is the most feared unit composition in the game, right? So if you're a new player in StarCraft 2, if you ever play a macro game as Zerg against Protoss, you're probably gonna find yourself going up against a lot of carriers, a Mothership, a couple of High Templar, some Void Rays, some Tempests, and all of that, right? Historically speaking, I think it's the one unit composition that most players struggle with most of the time. However, if you're a Zerg player at the caliber of Serral, so you're like... Serral? You're like Serral, you're like Rogue, you're Raynor, you're, you know, you're one of those guys, right? Actually, hold that thought. Nah, I don't think this is gonna do too much. Ooh, there's a couple of Corruptors coming from the right, though. This is actually not bad at all for Serral. He is currently pretty much maxed out as well. He wants to try and see if he can get the kill on the 5th base, I think, for now. He needs to get rid of some of these Hydras as well. They kind of don't serve much of a function anymore. I'm actually quite surprised with how conservatively he's moving those Corruptors right now and just really using them for zoning. Just trying to make sure that these Hydras can pick up the base and will then maybe trade efficiently and get them out of there. Here we go. Nicely done. This is a really good engagement actually for Zerg right now. So he's trading, you know, units that don't have a lot of value for units that do have a lot of value. I mean, the Corruptors, obviously, they are very, very important to keep alive as well. You only ended up losing 2 of those bad boys, and apparently they're now going to continue puking on the base as well, forcing another 100 minerals down the drain. Drones are burrowed. In the meantime, over here in the top section of the map, the Spine Crawlers finish up. So Zealot run-bys aren't going to be such a pain in the butt to deal with anymore. Okay, so what was I saying? Right. So historically speaking, and I think for 99.9% of the StarCraft 2 player base, the Protoss Death Ball is the ultimate unit composition, right? However, at this level, Zerg versus Protoss late game, at the very least before the previous multiplayer balance patch, was heavily Zerg favored. And the reason for that is that they are extremely good at microing Queens, Corruptors, Infestors, Vipers, Brute Lords, Spore Crawlers, and all of those units effectively all at once. It's an extremely difficult skill to have. I personally, after playing 10 years of StarCraft, haven't quite mastered it. I lose most of my late game Zerg versus Protosses because the Protoss Death Ball is so powerful. Oh, once again the Banelinks. Nope, good storms there, man. Neeb is so resilient here. I love it. Really good stuff. Anyhow, so I've brought up the multiplayer balance patch a couple times. So there's a couple things. First off, Banelings are a little bit weaker. Secondly, Void Rays are, well, a little bit different like I talked about earlier. They're still obviously phenomenal. Look at how fast they are right now compared to those Corruptors. Yeah, with the Flux Veins ability, they're going to be able to cross the distance very quickly. Last but not least, we also have a new Tempest upgrade. So I guess the Tempest that we saw earlier have died. I'm secretly hoping he's going to be getting it as well, because I haven't actually seen a Protoss player get that Tempest upgrade just yet. But basically the new Tempest ability, it looks like a Warcraft 3 spell, so it's a little bit funny. But basically they deal substantially more damage to structures. And it's specifically added into the game. So there, by the way, we do see a couple of Tempests coming. I like this. They're substantially better against structures, meaning that they're going to be able to grab themselves kills on these spore crawlers in particular. So that's the reason why you have them. So you probably want to bring an Oracle, get the tag on some of that static defense, and then use the long range of those Tempests to get rid of those spores. Usually that's what creates the stalemate at this level. Zerg doesn't want to engage without the spore crawlers, and Protoss doesn't want to engage on the spore crawlers. So you create a bit of an awkward scenario that we see in a lot of these cases. Alright. There's the mothership as well. Have we already got the upgrade? I don't even know what the research button looks like. I guess we'll see in a little bit. Maybe you... No, I don't think you got it already. So essentially the Tempest ability... I mean the Tempest default shot rodder, it looks like a fireball, okay? You know how like a Tempest usually fires? It looks... Basically, with the research enabled, it looks significantly more scary. But it looks like a Warcraft 3 spell, more so than a StarCraft 2 spell, in my opinion. We'll see in just a little bit. Alright. Now, in a lot of these late-game scenarios, right? It mostly comes down to the player that ends up mining more. And historically speaking, that's pretty much always been the Zerg. The Zerg obviously are more mobile. So right now, for example, Serral is grabbing this base. If he also secures this one, and then, you know, both players were to mine out the base, so Neeb takes the one in the bottom right, and maybe this one over here, he's gonna have a full base of additional resources over his opponent. I think that that is where a lot of these games are gonna be decided going into the future, especially, you know, assuming Protoss can actually put up a fight in the late game. I haven't actually seen it before, so we'll see. So a drone right now is moving over to this newly acquired location. And that's going to allow Serral to, hopefully for his sake, start mining an extra base here. If this continues like this, right, and we see Zerg just simply having a full base up, that's, yeah, like a full base advantage, that is absolutely massive. Now, there's no detection here, so Serral's actually manually detonating a couple of these banelings, trying to see if he can blow up a few of those probes over there. Or maybe they got shot at actually by the photon cannons. So maybe that was the one that ended up dealing some damage there to his own mineral line in a way. Regardless, yeah, right now I'm liking this position for the finisher a lot. So infestors are being added on. We see Vipers up in the air as well. So we're currently at 3 of them. You don't necessarily want to have too many, but just enough to abduct those units. The mothership, of course, very easily abducted as well. It can't be knurled anymore. Oh, by the way, another... Hey, there it is! There it is! Oh my god, look at that little icon. What in the world? I haven't even seen that before in a single game. That's so crazy. What was I saying? Alright, yeah, another thing that they've also done in the most recent balance patch is the fact that Neural Parasite right now on a carrier is just basically no longer useful, okay? So... It's a little more complicated than that. It has to do with the AI of the little interceptor ships. But long story short, essentially you don't want to be using infestors for Neural Parasite on those carriers anymore. It's just not a really good counter. So, what you're looking for as a Zerg player here is to abduct units with the Vipers and then to land fungal growths if the Protoss decides to engage, so they can't really back off and to do a little bit of additional supplemental damage. Protoss, in the meantime, is trying to utilize especially those High Templar, right? So the High Templar are absolutely awesome. By the way, look at the ability right now. So it's a little blue ball that it's shooting, right? They're shooting blue balls. Story of... No, Loko, no. Ooh, there's the... Ooh, massive funk growth, actually, man. Ooh, this is a huge battle at this point. A lot of those Protoss units do get abducted, and actually, this is not a bad spot here. For, I think, the Protoss player. He has a lot of shield batteries here on the low ground. Now, obviously, if those abductions keep happening, that's going to be painful. Yeah, there's still... Yeah, you see the little red abilities right now. Doesn't that look like a fireball, dude? That looks like a Warcraft 3 spell. Anyhow, that's the upgraded ability right now. So their air-to-air attack still looks the same, but their air-to-ground ability looks a little bit different. While this is all going on, though, right? Bottom right-hand corner, still not acquired. There's one lonely little swarm host hanging out there. Bottom right-hand base, still not acquired by the Protoss player. And Zerg is now a full 2 bases up. Look at the Zealot harassment. The non-existent Zealot harassment, right? I feel like you need to keep that going. The problem is, Zerg at this point has so much disposable income. So you can see right now, He's already up to 6,500 minerals. He can continue planting down a ton of static defense, and this is where things become very difficult for a Protoss player. Now, I do think, though, that it might be possible to get, like, I don't know, like a Warp Prism out, right? And, like, start hitting the Zerg player at multiple angles. Because I really think that's what you need to get done. Essentially, these games, most of the time, are decided by economy. And so far, Serral is having the huge upper hand in that regard. Got myself a little bit of water as well, by the way. I knew what I was getting myself into. Feedback, obviously. A huge spell here as well for Protoss. So, ooh, nice work once again, man. These Tempests are actually adding in a ton of damage. I'm really, really liking it. We didn't ever see Tempest in this matchup, but I'm a fan. This is fantastic. They're actually now dealing with a lot of these Spore Crawlers as well. Huh. So, if the Spore Crawlers are gone, Zerg is gonna have to retreat. There's no way that Zerg can actually fight this with, like, I don't think anyway, with all of these Spore Crawlers here in this position. Or sorry, without all of those Spore Crawlers in this position. Crazy back and forth so far. Bottom right in base is gonna finish up eventually. Neeb is gonna have to make sure that he gets some workers over there in just a little bit too. Additional spores are coming up, but this new spell, yeah. This new Protoss Tempest ability, I like it. A lot of people were skeptical about it when they first announced it, but I actually think it's really neat. This is forcing Zerg into a bit of a different position, right? Those Tempests are so helpful. I love the addition here of these oracles. So essentially the way that this works, right, is that Tempests can shoot away further than they can see. So the revelation ability of those oracles keeps the tag up. So right now he's going to need to use one of them again, so they can shoot at their maximum range here all the time. Really wonderful work here. This is extremely cost efficient right now for the Protoss player. Really nice. Oh, wow, okay. He actually tried to get the assimilation right there on the Oracle, maybe to use, I don't know, the Pulsar Beam or maybe a revelation on the Protoss force here. But I've got a feeling that if this continues onwards like this, and once again, this is the first time I've ever seeing this, right? Like, this is the first time with this new patch that I'm seeing this. I've got a feeling that Zerg is going to have to get out of here. He's already kind of backing off. Now, he did get a lot of resources already out of this, right? So I would say about half of the resources in this newly, or like this base right here by Serral are gone. But this is good. This is really cool. Bottom right hand corner in the meantime was acquired. Neeb will have to start mining those gases over there for certain as well, because that's kind of the main limiting resource here. Serral probably not entirely sure how to deal with this either. I think he wants to just simply get maximum income here. Oh, beautiful feedback there as well. So, feedback, by the way, for those of you unfamiliar, High Templar don't just have Psionic Storm. They also have a spell called Feedback, which got buffed up, not in the previous balance patch, but in the patch before that. So they've been trying to fix late game in this matchup for quite some time. But essentially the way it works is that you can use your spellcaster, so your High Templar, to remove the energy and to deal damage to your opponent's spellcasters based on the amount of energy that they have. So Feedback, it outranges Vipers, it outranges Infestors. So Protoss, technically speaking, in the late game, has all of the tools at their disposal to, like, you know, do it, right? To, like, a win. Yet it's been a long time in the late game that we've actually seen a Protoss player take a decisive victory. And at least when I first saw the timer of this replay, right, and I knew that it was going to be a Zerg versus Protoss where freaking Serral is playing. This guy is a legend in the late game. I wasn't sure how you know, Neeb would go ahead and pull it off, but this is cool. Yeah. Right now, he's taking control of, well, one of the bases on his side of the map. At the same time, though, this Zerg army is still pretty mobile, right? Especially on the creep. So, despite the fact that Neeb is taking control of this base right now that Zerg was previously mining, it's very dangerous for him to get all the way over in this position, because you can see, in the meantime here at home, this Zerg force is advancing. Tempest once again being super helpful. Ooh, I love this. Serral actually bringing now the Infestors to the party. There is a Photon Cannon over there, so Neural Parasite on the Tempest isn't gonna happen. At least not just yet. But already some nice split multi-pronged harassment here. And Neeb right now is setting up static defense over here, which is gonna make it very difficult for the Zerg player to engage. Another change that we saw that actually affected this matchup quite a bit last November, which is quite a while ago, is that Brute Lords now effectively have 10 range rather than 12, meaning that they are going to have to get much closer to the static defense to deal with it. So I've got a feeling, right, that like Protoss has all of the tools at their disposal to win in the late game. I just don't know if it's actually going to happen. Alrighty, look at this. So neither player really wants to fight the other. Apparently this is the moment where Neeb is going to be able to take care of his opponent's natural. In the meantime, Serral is going to go after one of the mining bases. Keep in mind though that Serral doesn't really care too much about all of this. I mean, he can just make another base somewhere else. So already a Spire is coming up over here. He's got himself a Lair morphing in as well. So he's already essentially giving up this base. He did make an Ultralisk Cavern as well, just for the hell of it. Don't really know exactly what the purpose of that was. I mean, sometimes we see them being utilized to actually soak up a lot of those... what are they called? Like the little interceptor ships. They can stay alive against interceptors for a very long time. And if this is a Protoss army without Archons, actually, you can certainly mix in an Ultra or or two successfully as well. Not a bad idea. But there we go. The main base of the Zerg player is gone in exchange for a base that wasn't mining gas anymore. I actually think that is a favorite, like, trait right there for the Protoss. Gas is the limiting resource in the late game, man. Nobody really cares too much about minerals anymore. Look at the mineral and the bank in general here for both of these guys. Both of them have a huge amount of stuff. This is putting Protoss, though, in a bit of a weird spot. I almost feel like he needs to recall to one of these locations. Yeah, I think that's a much better choice, so he can actually come in from the back. Apparently this base, by the way, was killed earlier. I believe I missed that. Okay. This is now a battle, though, without Spore Crawlers, right? So that is something worth noting. It's gotta be so careful. Those Infestors are ready to Neuroparasite the Tempest. The Mothership is ready to be abducted as well. Base, once again, will not go up. Or at the very least, it won't be mining here. Okay, finally a couple pot shots once again. Infestors, though, so helpful with their fungal growths. Forcing this Protoss player to back up. Yeah, so neither of these two guys really wants to fight here without their static defense present, which is what makes this late game so awkward, right? When you think about it, like, Terran doesn't really have any good late game static defense. I mean, they have, like, you know, bunkers and stuff, right? But you gotta put units in those, and they've got, like, missile turrets and stuff, but they're not nearly as good as shield batteries and photon cannons or spore crawlers and spine crawlers. So the Terran matchups don't really have this. Zerg versus Protoss, though, sees this quite a bit, especially with the buffs that they have done to the shield battery over time as well. It's an extremely scary unit composition to fight against, especially when they're being healed up constantly, right? I mean, these Protoss units, they have so much health. Alrighty. So we're a half hour in and nobody's winning. I like this. These are the moves I'm talking about. That is beautiful moves right there. Or those are some beautiful moves there by Serral. Although, honestly, Neeb still made the best of that. Yeah. Ooh. He still made the best of that, utilizing those Tempest once again from a distance. I really think that key to Zerg versus Protoss late game is probably going to be the Tempest, right? I mean, the Mothership, the Carriers, the High Templar, the Void Rays, and all that. You know, those units are common, right? The Archons, they're a given. It makes a lot of sense. Nicely done, actually. Takes control of one of those High Templar and starts throwing water balloons at his opponent's Immortals instead. Anyways, I think the Tempest might be the key here for Protoss in this matchup, especially when it comes to dealing with those, like, Stillmate scenarios with this much static defense. Alrighty. So we have a bit of a weird loop-de-loop right now in the map. If you were to tune in at this point, you might have assumed that Zerg spawned in the top left and Protoss in the bottom right. I wouldn't even be too surprised to see the Protoss players taking the natural or taking the natural here of the Zerg. Once again, Neuroparasite is extremely helpful here in dealing with all of these Immortals and Archons that are trying to defend this location. So Zerg doesn't really want to spend their money on high-tech units at this point anymore. I mean, you want to save your gas for a remax, right? However, you do have a lot of minerals at your disposal, so usually we see static defense, drones, and Zerglings. I love the fact that he's going for this many Zerglings. They're not very helpful in battles, but they can certainly be killing this main base, right? I mean, if you give 100 Zerglings that main base, they're gonna go ahead and take care of it really, really rapidly if you don't leave units behind. So in a way, this is now forcing Neeb to keep some of those units overhead his main base as well. So, while the Zerg player obviously lost his main base, he lost like a Spire and a Great Spire and a bunch of tech over there too. It's not the end of the world. Protoss can't really lose this. I mean, he can, but like, it's gonna cost him dearly. So I love this. Look how fast these Void Rays are, bro. That's crazy. Our Void Ray is gonna be used right now to defend the main base. Natural expansion of the Zerg once again gets killed. I really feel like he can go for a Nexus over here. You can start the 30-minute long cannon rush, dude. Okay. Protoss, obviously, likewise also wants to save up as much gas as possible. So this is actually a slight little error. Having 2 out of 3 in gas does hurt quite a bit, but gas is the limiting resource here for both sides. So obviously Neeb can go ahead and spend all of his minerals and photon cannons and shield batteries and, you know, expansions and gas geysers and all that. I like this though. I mean, he can also dump his minerals on zealots, right? Which is not a bad idea. This is what I was talking about. This is a beautiful move by Serral. It's very tempting at this point to try and max out and just make a lot more corruptors and stuff, but I love the fact that he always keeps like 25, 30 supply open just to do little moves like this. He will obviously add on more tech units here at some point if he needs to, but just having the mindset to like max out in 170 supply. Ooh, massive storm. So you can do some harassment there is fantastic. Now in the meantime though, a lot of the Zerg units do come up and abduct a few of those Void Rays. But still, Neeb's army is looking very scary. I mean, he can take care of these bases. I love the fact that he's actually sitting over this little crevice over here as well. That's gonna basically negate the Spore Crawlers and a lot of these Infestors. I'm really getting any— oh my god, he's almost one-shotting a freaking hatchery. That's crazy. That new ability, man, it deals so much damage. So just to clarify, by the way, I keep like mixing up attack and ability. It's not really like an activated ability, it's just like an attack that like gets better. Okay, so now we have a lot of Zerglings, but what in the world are you going to use Zergling for? Zerglings are not that useful. Love the fact that he is using those Brute Lords as well, right? Despite the fact that there's like no Protoss ground army at all, the Brute Lords are fantastic when it comes to dealing with this static defense over here. Keep in mind, Protoss can always recall his army around as well. So these Zerglings right now are such a pain in the butt, right? Because, I mean, this is giving Zerg a lot of time. Now, here we go. Finally, the Void Rays have decided to show up. Corruptors come in at the perfect moment as well. Serral, you are so freaking good at this game. I don't even know how you, like, do all of that. If you look right here at the actions per minute, it's not even, like, ridiculously high, but it's pretty high. Casual 900 APM there. That's like, what, 16 buttons a second or something? I don't know, 18? Someone do the math, please. It's a lot of buttons. Okay. So, knowing, right, that this game is not over yet, I think we're gonna get into a position where both players are gonna be able to mine out their sides of the map. That is gonna be weird. I actually don't know if I've seen a game where like all gases and mineral patches are mined. We're getting into that territory already. I mean, there's a little bit of mining still happening, but the vast majority of it is gone, right? Neither player really has that much. I would wager that this Protoss army is significantly more cost efficient. If we look right now at resources lost, you can see indeed that Zerg has lost about 5,000 more resources. That's quite a bit, but those are all minerals. Serral does also have a much bigger bank than those 5,000 resources, right? Like the difference there, significantly bigger than the 5,000 resources cost. Looks like this Nexus will be picked off, and with that a couple of gateways too. Is there still gas in these? No, no gas in those. I mean, it could certainly make a hatchery over here. Continue mining some of those minerals. Assuming it kills this base as well. And this is once again not a very important base for Protoss, who's actually now supply blocked out of all things. Didn't expect that. Is he building his tech over here? Oh my god, he's building his tech over here. Close to where the Zerg's main base is. That's insane. Imagine playing ladder games like this. I don't even know how that kind of thing happens. A weaker player would have lost so many times already. This is actually crazy. Yeah, so he's building his tech back up. He's looking at like the most defensible location on this map, and apparently it's gonna be this one. Additional stargates are being added on as well. He needs to be careful though, because in a way Serral can like, if you look at the minimap, right, he can like go around and swoop around. I love this move though. There's really not that much static defense here available anymore for the Zerg. So that means that this Protoss army is slowly waltzing forward, right? Like this is like a big bulldozer. It's like while you can run around it for a while, at some point it's gonna waltz straight through your base. And you gotta be careful. There's that hatchery gone for sure. Zerglings in the meantime, man. They are going to town. Like Zerglings are the real MVPs here. This is what I'm like, as a Zerg player, this is a big takeaway for me. Serral's not actually maxing out on like the most powerful army that he can make. He's purposefully dedicating a lot of supply here to Zerglings, which are ultimately like pushing him ahead in this match. Really, really like that. He's also now building the creep from this base all the way towards like where Protoss' army is actually at right now. So this is crazy. The problem is though, Serral doesn't, or sorry, like this base over here is the only one that Neeb actually cares about. These ones over here, they have no gas. So if it's no gas, or if it has no gas, it's pretty much not worth, you know, getting. I mean, obviously zealots and stuff are still helpful, and static defense is still useful too, but this base over here is super critical. This has still quite a lot of minerals in it as well, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Serral taking this one in a little bit. Especially since it doesn't seem like Protoss is thinking in that direction anymore. Base in the bottom right-hand corner is probably going to be one of the most important ones. Hive number 2. Do we have maxed out upgrades for both? We do not. So there's a shields upgrade missing for Protoss. He needs to get himself a forge ideally and finish that one up. It's quite important actually to point out. Zerg does have like +3 for everything, which is, yeah, very significant. This isn't a huge Archon-based army, so it's not the end of the world, but obviously it does help out because all of these Protoss units have a ton of shields. Especially the mothership. What is it, 350? Yeah, 350 shields. It's a lot of freaking shields. He's adding on a cyber core again, because believe it or not, you need a cyber core to like make stalkers and whatnot. Easily forgotten in the late game. Alrighty, so this is Protoss main base 2.0. Is this the moment though where we have the stalemate happening? Base in the bottom right hand corner, once again being acquired. I like it. Hatchery now also acquired over at the 4th base of the Protoss player. Exactly like I was saying earlier. This is something though that Protoss can push into quite a bit. He doesn't know about the hatchery though. Like, does he make that prediction right now? Here comes the Brute Lord Infestor army from that side. In the meantime, the Corruptors and the Vipers and the Overseers are in a different location entirely. Gets one photon cannon, then gets on out of there again. This is a very dangerous move that Serral is setting up right now, though. I think he wants to see if he can potentially pick up all of these Void Rays and then get on out of there. Yeah. He sees that the Void Rays are being used as a hit squad right now to kill the Zerglings, so he's laying a trap. He knows that the Void Rays are going to come in this direction. Okay. Neeb apparently sniffs it out. Decides to bring the entirety of his army instead. Still that mothership. That mothership is not a cheap unit to get. That's certainly a dead Void Ray there. Man, this Zerg army looks so much bigger and so much more terrifying than that of the Protoss, though. Despite the fact that, like, Protoss is as strong as they possibly can be off of, like, 22 probes. You always get, like, 70 units, it feels like, as Protoss in the late game. You get so few actual units. I love, by the way, as well, that Serral is bringing in the Overseers with this hit squad. So this is something that is very common, but maybe not everyone is aware of it, right? So basically what you do is exactly what Serral's doing here. You bring the Vipers, the Corruptors, and the Overseers on one hotkey group. And then if your opponent decides to try and feedback it, right? Since these units have kind of like the same movement speed and they all fly, they are oftentimes gonna, rather than accidentally, or rather than like feedback a Viper, they're gonna accidentally feedback an Overseer instead, which is something that Zerg really does not care about. It's kind of difficult to get the correct hit in there. Plus, obviously, they're detectors, which is also a big reason as to why they exist. This is so nuts. Like, this is not a game that you can really practice for, right? I mean, you kind of can, but these kind of matches will occur very seldomly. This is the reason why you play a ladder and you try and get into a variety of scenarios. Serral's looking so strong, though, in these kind of scenarios. So, what is Neeb's plan at this point? I think what he wants to do is just mine the resources that he can, right? He doesn't really want to start roaming the map until this base in the bottom right-hand corner is mined out. Because he knows if he doesn't grab it, the Zerg player probably will. So, he knows that this base is obviously run out. He knows that there's going to be a lot of resources here in the bottom right-hand corner. But he probably wants to start roaming the map once this one is, like, completely mined out. The problem is, though, and this is where the game gets a little bit awkward, is that we arrive once again back into that scenario that I pointed out earlier. If, like, there are no minerals to mine anywhere on this map, Zerg doesn't want to fight without the spore crawlers, and Protoss doesn't want to fight without the, you know, static defense that they have. So, how exactly do you play that one out? As soon as Protoss moves out, these Zerglings are going to move in. But the main Zerg army is not going to want to engage on top of all of this static defense. So it creates a bit of a weird scenario that we just haven't seen too much. Right? Like, how many times have we seen a map that has, like, how many bases does this one have? Like 16? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I think it's 16 bases, so 8 for each. How many times have we seen that? Like, an entire map mined out. I've been watching and casting StarCraft 2 for like a decade at this point. I think I've seen it once. So this is not really where the game is balanced. So that's a Viper kill. That's big, right? Immediately it gets replaced again because that's what Serral does. He's like, okay, yeah, it's gone. No worries, though. Neither player is really going to have any workers anymore either. Obviously, if there's no reason to have them, right? Why would you keep them up? So I wouldn't be surprised to see more static defense coming up. And then the drone count replaced with additional, you know, additional attacking units instead. He probably wants to get rid of some of these Zerglings as well, though. They don't serve that much of a function anymore when there's no more bases that are mining. Obviously, they're good at taking out static defense like this. So this is kind of like a shark, okay? This is a big shark right over here. It's roaming the waters. It's got its little fin out of the water, so Neeb kind of knows where it's located. But if you lose track of it, it's probably going to strike, right? So you can't really lose focus here. A lot of these games actually are kind of turning out to be like a game of stamina now too. I don't know exactly how many of you watched the DreamHack full finale yesterday, if you're watching this on the day that the video goes up. But a lot of the games that these programmers are playing are like complete marathons as well. Like StarCraft 2 used to be all about sprints and very fast, cheesy builds. But right now you need to have stamina to be able to play games like this for hours. Many money? Question mark? Aha, not really. 9K, 4K? Oh, Serral asked 15K? Oh, he thought that Neeb had 15,000 resources at this point? 15,000, 6,000. I love how they're just having a casual conversation at this point. Still getting the last drops of your 4th base. He's not mentioning that part, though. With a smile. No more gas? Many gas coming. At least 400. That's what you would classify as much gas. Damn, that's a lot. Pretty sure Neeb is being ironic here, right? I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Sometimes, like, sarcasm doesn't really translate very well over text, right? As we all know. It's a little hard to say if they're serious. I think Serral is serious about it, but... yeah, 400 gas at this point is 2 Vipers. That's pretty good. Okay. So, the map is mined out. For all intents and purposes. I mean, the final mineral patches right now are being mined. This Protoss late game army actually has become so much more mobile. It's actually crazy. This hatchery will be picked off, so with that, I think that these mineral patches will probably never finish. But you know what? I'll probably title this video something along the lines of no more minerals remaining, or something along... I don't know what I'm gonna call this video yet, okay? I'm gonna call this no more minerals remaining. I'm sorry. Haters will say it's fake. Haters will say it's clickbait. No, but seriously though. How many minerals are we still talking? So main base mined out, natural. It's gonna be mined out here eventually as well. There's still a handful of mineral patches that have like, you know, 50 minerals. This one actually has 600. That's a lot, bro. That's worth a hatchery. Anyways, yeah, there's still some minerals set up here and there, but most of the map right now is mined out. Now, where is this gonna go? Do you think either of them wants to commit here? I'm really not sure. This is probably what Serral would call the boring part, or the less exciting part of this match. There's a lot of movement here constantly going on. I almost feel like fast forwarding. If they're just gonna like tiptoe around each other and nothing's actually gonna happen, I almost feel like putting the game in ×2 speed. I mean, if they're both gonna sit on their static defense, right? I'll go ahead and do that. I like this actually. Using the Oracle's Revelation skill to clean up some of the creep. It's gonna take about 45 seconds for all that creep to disappear, so it'll take a while. Zerglings in the meantime cleaned up this base, but there's not really enough resources in there to justify making a new nexus. I love the fact that he's adding on so many Zerglings. It must be so tempting to just add on more Corruptors at this point. So how many spores are we even talking right now, though? 35 spore crawlers, 14 photon cannons, and 17 shield batteries. So both players have about like 35-ish defensive structures ready to go. Well, there's a couple of spines too, but they are basically irrelevant to a flying army. Yeah, I think that this is kind of the moment where no one is really doing anything. I'm gonna ×2 the game. Makes the game go by a little bit quicker. I'll move it back down to regular speeds once the game, you know, resumes. Even though it's being played right now, I mean, nothing's really happening. Oh, look at the action, guys. Wow. This is the beauty of casting from replays, though. You don't have to watch the players tiptoe around each other for as long as like a live game, right? It's actually a lot of freaking changelings right there being caught in in one of those stasis wards. Yeah, so I actually don't know what ends up happening here from here on out. Both players have a huge bank. How much larva are we talking? There's only 35 larva. That's actually a problem. You might need more larva here. If this entire army clashes, right, it's gonna take Protoss. I think it's a draw. Yeah, maybe. That's what I was thinking too. Like, it's nah. I mean, we can't really call this a draw. If we make it one, yes. Yeah, maybe that's the solution. It's weird to have a draw when both players are maxed out and they both have like 25,000 resources or whatever in the bank. But it's kind of what you see in chess as well. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's both of our disadvantage to attack. There's a lot of stalemate scenarios in chess as well, where like if you make the same move multiple times in a row and both players do so, nobody wants to commit. I'll show you. All right, well, Serral apparently disagrees. I'm kind of with Neeb here as well. Like, he's going to bring the spore crawlers to the party. Okay, so that's his plan. I think what he wants to do is bring the spore crawlers to the party. The problem is, though, if he does that, and Neeb manages to get some good tags on this army, right? And he, like, shoots this army from a distance, it's gonna be an advantage for Protoss. This is dangerous, though. Yeah, maybe that's actually like what we're gonna get into in these kind of games, you know, going into the future. Apparently Serral's brave enough to fight. I feel like a lot of Zerg players would not. I'll switch on over to the units tab as well in the top left hand corner so you can see precisely how much actually remains. Did he get the +3 flyer, by the way? Or the +3? Yeah, he did. Okay. The shield upgrade, rather. Watch and learn, but he's slow pushing the creep. One thing actually that a lot of people are not aware of is that a lot of these guys are actually good friends. I don't know necessarily if Neeb and Serral are good friends, but even though they like compete against each other in a lot of games, right? They're oftentimes on very friendly terms because they meet each other at tournaments. Well, normally anyway. Not right now, but they meet each other at tournaments nearly monthly. So, you know, it's a bit of a lonely job to have as well, right? So it makes sense to want to relate to similar people. Anyhow, this is actually really good here for Serral though. Forcing that Zerg army, or rather that Protoss army to split up. The Void Rays now got recalled towards another location as well. Nice abductions there as well, but I do think that most of these spores will probably be picked up. Problem is that Serral has a lot of money. Like, he can just make new spore crawlers. I almost feel like making new drones and just making more spores is the way to go. There's the big fungal growth, though. There come a lot of the Void Rays from a distance as well. Parasitic bombs right now being utilized, too. And Serral, I mean, he looks like he wants to engage this, but I don't really know if he can. There's a lot of shield batteries down on the ground, too. Here we go. Finally, the Corruptors decide to engage most of this army. Is there going to be enough Protoss remaining to right now clean up these last Zerg units? I think there might just barely be enough. Oh my god. Is there though? Is there though? Most of the interceptors are gone. Wow. What in the world? So reinforcements are gonna arrive significantly quicker for the Zerg player, right? So that is one thing to point out. Zerg is now reinforcing this with 16 Corruptors. He's got 3 drones, by the way. Both players have 3 workers here. I love the idea of adding on like High Templar and Archons here, because they're like spellcasters and stuff, right? And they tend to like not die, and they have a lot of stuff now. No, Serral is not maxed. Not yet. Neeb is gonna take a while to get maxed out again. I mean, he's only got 1200 or 1300 gas right now. Learn to missing larva. Learn to macro. Trying my best. I love this. Why don't we see banter like this in other games? Or like, you know, in actual tournament games? This is just like a ladder game, right? Do you think this qualifies as craziest ladder game of all time? I'm pretty sure this is, I mean, the craziest ladder game of all time, right? This doesn't even happen at the pro level. I mean, I have not seen all ladder games, so I can't really make the claim, but you can claim all kinds of things in your YouTube title, so I could certainly title the video that way. Bro, this is actually insane. So, advantage I would say is Serral. Yeah. So I like this. I like this. So he is adding on additional spellcasters. Now, you wouldn't necessarily think of them as spellcasters, maybe, but queens are phenomenal in this scenario. They have a lot of range, anti-air range that is. Plus they are obviously just minerals, right? So you can add on additional ones quite easily. Neeb is running dry on gas. He's actually out of gas right now. Oh my god. They've been nerfing Zerg late game for a long time. And while I agreed that maybe it was a little bit overpowered at the pro level about a year ago, those recent changes, I think, should probably be the last ones. Because this is not a scenario that we've seen, right? So like, you can't really make judgment calls based off of balance, or like on balance based off of just this game alone. Despite the fact this looks like a Serral victory? Asterisk, question mark? I don't know. There were multiple moments where I think Neeb certainly had the upper hand and could have potentially won as well. There's like a lot of undiscovered territory here. So if you scroll down towards the comment section of this video, there's probably going to be some enormous balance discussion about why Protoss late game is OP or why Zerg late game is OP or whatever. I think we're currently in a really good state. It's like if this game is something to judge, right? I mean, This certainly is going to scare a lot of Zerg players away from playing late game. I can tell you that much. So production on both sides basically 0. Serral is maxed out again. Neeb is currently sitting at 1,400 or 148 supply. He wishes he was at 1,000. Do you warp in additional zealots at this point? Like, what can you make? You can make zealots. This is actually really good. Yeah, this is a heavy supply block right now. Serral's still using those Zerglings. Zerglings certainly have way more utility in the late game than zealots do. Just because, you know, Zerglings can retreat. That's kind of their big difference. Zerglings are actually mobile enough to retreat, and while zealots obviously can as well, much harder to go ahead and do so. Here's the thing. Do you think this could still be a draw, right? Because assuming Neeblet takes control of this high ground, and maybe he gets like some more stuff over here too, Zerg is not going to be able to push up the ramp, can they? I mean, if you push up a ramp, you don't have your spore crawlers present. If he can, oh my god, that's a lot of freaking queens, man. Holy, that's 21 queens. That's actually crazy. The thing is, like, if you take control of this area of the map, which seems to be what Neeb is doing right now, it's pretty much impossible for the spore crawlers to be part of this army or part of this battle. I almost feel like spore crawlers should be a unit, man. Why are they under structures? Well, I guess if they weren't labeled a structure, they would be able to go through a Nidus worm or a Nidus worm. That would kind of suck. That would very much so be broken. Oh. Nicely done. Gets a Viper. Every Viper counts. I actually think that late game scenarios may very well be draws. Like ultimate late game scenarios like this. Maybe this one is going to be a Serral victory. I don't see how this is going to be a Neeblet victory though. Like, let's think about that for a second. How is Neeb possibly going to win this? I think best scenario right now for him is a stalemate. Either that or a terribly messed up fight by Serral, you know? Like if Serral completely fat fingers all of his hotkeys and just doesn't know how to fight anymore, that's gonna be bad. Oof. Big abducts. Yeah, it's like 10 supply down the drain. What? Did he just... Okay. Yeah, he really wanted to storm those Zerglings, but he ended up storming some of his own units as well. Not ideal. Maybe Neeblet losing a little bit of focus. This comes back to stamina as well, though, right? I think it's very clear that the player with more stamina at this point is probably going to be the victor as well. I feel like Serral plays as well in the first game of a tournament day as like 15 hours later. It's actually insane. Another player that's extremely good at those marathon sessions is Innovation. I know there have been multiple tournaments where Innovation starts playing 5 PM in Korea and still plays at 7 AM Korea. I remember him playing Grand Finals. I don't remember which tournament it was, but I think it was Stay at Home Story Cup or something. Like he ended up playing like 14-hour days, and then in Zerg versus Terran, which was the Grand Finals. Actually, I think it was against Serral. It probably was, because Serral has been winning Take TV events for a while. But even like after like 14 hours or whatever, how many hours it was, he was still opening up triple command center every single Zerg versus Terran, which is just ridiculous. You need to have so much mental stamina, right? Like I think a lot of us has experienced this moment where you play StarCraft 2 and you play 1 or 2 ladder games and you are mentally exhausted, right? At least I know that feeling very well. I don't really have it that much anymore because I've been playing StarCraft 2 for a very long time, but yeah, like mental drainage is certainly a thing. Ooh, I like this. Once again, look at this. Serral's still on point, still thinking, right? This is almost like Neeb autopiloting right now, and that's 2 additional Void Rays going down. That's a misplay by him. He doesn't need to be doing that. He could just send his army in that direction instead. He has control of the watchtower, so he knows where this, you know, this army is going to be located now. Ooh, nice revelation. Gets himself a couple of these Zerg units once again. Still though, here come the queens. Oh my god, March of the freaking queens. This is insane. There we go. Fungal growths. Okay, that's it, right? Recall. Oh my god. Well, that's what I thought it was going to be it. Recall, though, does come up. I actually don't like this move from Neeb, though. Why is he here in the first place? He doesn't need to be here. Oh my god, I think this might just be a little bit too much. Serral decides to abduct all of these Protoss units on top of as many of his queens as he can get. Now, beautiful time warps are coming down. That is gonna make this Zerg army significantly weaker to advance. Huge storms do also land on top of all of those corruptors. So despite the fact that Neeb actually has half the supply right now, or more than half, or less than half rather, he's still making the best of it. Actually insane. Well, here's the Serral Remax. 6 queens, 19 corruptors. Zerglings in the meantime are hitting this Protoss base, main 2.0, from the right hand side. I'm pretty sure what Neeb wants to do right now is just sit. Don't move, man. I think he should have done that like 10 minutes ago, to be honest. Maybe 15 minutes ago. He hasn't had the need to fight, and I don't think he can win off of creep. So his better move is certainly just to like stay on his bases, right? Just do not fight without your shield batteries and your photon cannons present. These Zerglings have been absolute MVPs. Okay. This is a marathon cast as well. I mean, these players are probably struggling, but my voice is struggling a little bit too. Okay. Here comes the march. Dun, 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 dun. The March of the Queens. The Queen Imperial March. Okay, sorry, I tried. Anyhow. This is still a pretty crazy battle. There's no more Vipers present, I don't think, but that mothership does go down here eventually. Battery overcharge is utilized as well. Zerg once again decides to back up. Gets another Brute Lord. I mean, that's another Brute Lord. I'm actually starting to get a little bit concerned here as well for Serral, though. If you look right now at resources lost, look at this. Oh my god, no way. That's so close. That's actually insane. That's basically, like, the difference right now is basically that one additional base that Serral has had for most of this game. Or not, like, one additional base. The fact that this is a ramp is huge too, though, because the Spore Crawlers can't actually get over there. Now, massive fungal growth comes up. Once again, the Corruptors decide to engage the Queens, desperately trying to transfuse as many of those Corruptors back up to full HP as they can. Transfusing each other as well. Void Rays utilizing their prismatic alignment to try and pick up as many of these Zerg units as possible. Protoss once again backs up to the safety of those static defensive structures. The Queens, however, are now pushing up the ramp, right? They have made their way up the ramp. They've spread the creep in this direction as well. Apparently, this is when Serral decides to go all in. He has got absolutely no workers. He's got absolutely no money. He can't really make anything other than one group of Zerglings. That said, though, the Tempests are still dealing damage from a distance. Queens do have a lot of energy. I'm almost feeling like Protoss might want to, like, yeah, just back up a little bit further, man. Oh my god, he's got prismatic alignment for the second time in this engagement. Dude. Prismatic alignment deals so much damage to those Corruptors. Queen's desperately trying to transfuse them back up, but Protoss holds. Oh my god. Is this a hold, though? Yeah, here comes, like, this is the thing. Once you've taken control of the high ground, you can start bringing forward the Spore Crawlers, right? And those Spore Crawlers are absolutely insane. They're gonna force this, this Protoss army to back off. Bring the Spine Crawlers, bro. I almost feel like you need to bring the Spines. Like, put them on the creep here as well and let them poke away. I guess the Brute Lords are the Spines. There's only 3 of them, or 4 of them, rather. A little hard to spot at this point, but... oh my god. I mean, there's no more production here from either of these, right? How many High Templar are there? 3. Okay, the High Templar are huge. Interceptors are being rebuilt. Takes about 7.5 minutes for them to go ahead and do so. I think Neeb is actually being pushed back. I think that Serral just did this. He's transfusing that one Brute Lord constantly. And the Brute Lords are throwing their little Brutelings at the static defense, slowly chipping away at all of this Protoss. Oh my god. This is the kind of game that requires a standing ovation. Absolute madness. There come the spines! There come the spines! What I was saying, dude! Look at the static defense that's still available. Bring the spine crawlers, yeah! Is this gonna come down to a spine crawler versus cannon? Like at the 1 hour mark. That's absolutely ridiculous. Oh my god. Oh, I love StarCraft so much. Like, I can't believe that there's people out there that prefer microing one unit over multiples. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. Look at what these players can do. I'm getting nerd chills right now. This is so crazy. Oh, here we go. A final stand. Maybe with the biggest storms ever. There's a chance that Neeb can push it back, but he's storming his own void race. And Serral, after 1 hour and 6 minutes of playing, obtains the victory in this absolutely ridiculous game of Zerg versus Protoss. I think this has to be the craziest ladder game of all time. What a match. That was insane. I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, hit that like button down below. I mean, if you made it all the way onto this video or this point in the video, do me a favor and hit that like button so, you know, it might get picked up by the YouTube algorithm. But for now, I want to very much so thank you for watching. Have an awesome day. Don't forget to smile, and I'll see you once again in the next one.